Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Jeff Rojas, and I'm a portrait and fashion photographer based in New York City. You're watching my Kiss Photo series where I strive to make photography education a lot easier. Now, over the last 6 weeks, I've covered a ton of information on portrait retouching, everything from frequency separation in Adobe Photoshop to color grading in Adobe Lightroom. Today, we're going to combine all those different topics into a single male portrait retouch, so stay tuned. Retouching is an extremely subjective topic in photography. Everyone has their own perspective on what makes a strong portrait retouch. So my personal position on it is I like to retain as much detail as possible, and I like to enhance features by using contouring, just to make the image look as natural as I feasibly can. Now, I never want my clients to feel self-conscious about some of the creative decisions I made when retouching. I want them to feel as natural as possible. With that being said, I do have a basic workflow that I use in order to keep my sanity when I'm retouching. We'll cover that amongst other things during this video. So if you feel like you're losing track on something or you feel you're not understanding something, the first 5 episodes of the Kiss Photo series probably covers those topics. Feel free to re-watch those or watch those for the first time. Again, they're free to watch on the YouTube channel. Now, that's enough talking. Let's just get to editing.
Okay, so if this is the first time you're seeing somebody's workflow, this is going to look extremely intimidating, but it's not. It's really simple. It's a fairly simple concept, so I'd recommend screen grabbing it if it's giving you even the slightest bit of trouble. First and foremost, I want to note that I am shooting in RAW format because of the additional information in the file, and the ability to easily adjust exposure, white balance, and the ability to select my color space later on. I'll completely break down color spaces in a separate tutorial on a separate date. For now, we're just going to stick to the basics. Section 2, I'm focusing on my global adjustments. I'm manipulating things like my exposure, my contrast, my white, my blacks, my darks, my highlights within that separate section. At that point, I'll go into my basic skin retouching using frequency separation. I'll go into defining and shaping the person's features using the dodge and burn technique. At that point, I can start enhancing their eyes, jumping into retouching hair, and export and delivery. It's a fairly simple process. So again, if you're having any issues, go ahead and screen grab that. Welcome to Adobe Lightroom. First and foremost, we're working with a raw image. This image has not been manipulated in any specific way. We're going to go ahead and manipulate the image as I see fit. So let's look at the image here. I'm going to go ahead and fit that to frame. So first and foremost, I want to go ahead and re-crop this image. I found it very distracting. Lots of area on his space on his shirt, not on his face. We want to go ahead and divert attention to his face. So let's go ahead and crop in on the image. Go ahead and turn that so we're nice and level. Perfect. I'm still going to crop in a tiny bit. Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so now we're working with a nice solid portrait. Next thing I'm going to wind up noticing is that he has some gaps in his hair we want to go ahead and fill. These little gaps that are inside here, we want to fill some of those in. I definitely want to clean up the blemishes that he has on his face. I'm also noticing that my lens was a little dirty on that specific segment. I definitely want to remove the hairs from his nose. They're very visually distracting. I definitely want to remove the blemishes that he has in his skin and some of the drier areas that he has here. As I continue scrolling down, I'm noticing some threads that are sticking out. We'll fix all those, and we'll lighten up some of these areas around here to look a little more refined. Okay, so first thing we're going to wind up noticing is we are shooting in RAW format, so there's a ton of information in there. First thing, according to the workflow that I showed you guys, is we want to manipulate our global adjustments, which is this section here. We want to manipulate our exposure, our contrast, our highlights, our shadows, whites, blacks, etc. as we see fit. First thing is my work is very contrasty, which means that there's a definitive difference between the lights and the darks in my image. I like them to be as far away as possible. For this specific image, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of contrast, but in doing so, I'm going to get saturation in his skin. So what I want to do is go ahead and lower my saturation a bit to kind of go back to the original skin tone that the gentleman had. And as I'm looking at this, I definitely want to add more detail towards the pupils because I would love to see more detail in the eyes. So I'm happy with where that is. I would say the only difference is I want some darkness around the shadows in these areas. So let's go ahead and lower the shadows. Okay, make the shadows a tiny bit darker. And overall, I would say I'm pretty happy with that image. I would just lower the highlights a tiny bit. I'm going to go ahead and right click that, edit in. We're going to go ahead and edit that in Adobe Photoshop. So now I'm in Adobe Photoshop, and the first thing we're going to wind up doing is making a duplicate copy of the background, just so we're working on a new layer and not on the original file. Okay, so first things first, we're following our workflow. We've gone through global adjustments, we made sure we were shooting in RAW. We're going to go through basic retouching and then defining and shaping. So basic retouching. Anything that you think has very limited texture to it, you can use correcting, or you can correct using the patch tool. That's what I wind up doing. Anything with skin texture in it, use frequency separation. I'll show you the differences there. I don't want to manipulate these areas because if I do, I'm going to leave a giant blob on his head. So that's not what I want to use to remove that specific area. What I want to use the patch tool for is small little tiny areas like this specific little tiny dot, where it's not manipulating too much texture around it. It's just small little tiny fragments that I can remove without changing too much of the detail around that specific piece. Again, like this little black part where there isn't much texture around it, I can remove that, and I don't have any major issues in those areas. Again, when it comes to portrait retouching, if you're a working professional portrait retoucher, you don't need to spend hours on your images. Spend enough time where it looks reasonably decent without spending a superfluous amount of time on it. Again, that's going to be your judgment call, but my focus is always the more I can shoot, the more money I'll make. So keep that in mind. Go ahead and use the clone stamp tool. I'm going to use lighten and just lighten this area up here. Definitely want to remove that. Okay, next thing I want to start removing is blemishes. So we're going to go ahead and run our frequency separation action, make things easier for us. So if you guys don't have that yet, it is available for free on my site. I'll leave the link below in the comment section. Go ahead and run that. And what it's going to do is make two separate folders for me, one for dodge and burn and one for frequency separation. So let's go ahead and use the frequency separation folder and start removing some of the blemishes out of his skin. Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Perfect. Next thing, I'm going to go ahead and create a layer in between my details layer and my blurs layer. And if you guys aren't familiar with this technique, definitely watch the frequency separation video. Go ahead and start panning inside those areas, and we're literally just airbrushing his skin. Perfect. Okay, and just lower the opacity of that. Awesome. Definitely want to paint those areas. Let's go back and erase here. Go back in, paint in there. Awesome. Again, it needs to be believable. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to look like you put forth the effort and made them look beautiful without spending hours on this specific image. That's the secret. I can't say that enough. Just go ahead and use color from those areas. Just start lining up here. Again, I'm still keeping skin texture in certain details here. What I'm removing is the skin blemishes that he has. Here we go, another spot. Okay. Probably went a little too far on there. Let's change the opacity brush that I have. Okay, let's look at before and after so far. Perfect, and here's a good thing. On that second layer, because I use such a high opacity brush, all I need to do if I think it's too much, just lower the opacity of the layer. It's non-destructive editing, so I can still see some of the blemishes and it looks realistic. So that's the first thing. Next thing is I definitely want to remove those nose hairs. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually use the details layer and see how much information's there. Let's go ahead and remove those little areas. And if we can't remove it all, we're gonna go ahead and clone stamp all of it over it. Perfect. Let's go in here. Awesome. Perfect. Frequency separation is such a lifesaver. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be reasonable. I can't keep saying that enough. Awesome. And we're gonna go ahead and create a new layer right above the details. Start copying some of these areas, switch our clone stamp tool to darken, lower our opacity brush, just start darkening some of the areas in his nose that have some highlights in them. Perfect. Okay, perfect, perfect. Let's go back in here. Just make sure if you're not seeing any changes that you're on current envelope. Perfect. Let's see before and after. Awesome. Okay. Dry areas of his ear. What we're going to wind up doing is going and creating a new layer in between our details and our blur layer. Copying the highlighted area or highlight area of the earlobe and just painting over it. What that's going to do is start airbrushing the earlobe so we don't have as many dry spots. Perfect. And we're going to take out some of the redness in his ear. And in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and take any color that is not red around his ear and do the same thing. Go ahead and airbrush his ears so they look realistic. Okay. They look less red and he looks less embarrassed. Let's go ahead and remove this little tiny blip here. Awesome. Let's go back, Control Undo. I'm not happy with that change. Go ahead and go to details. It's a change in our details layer. Perfect. Okay, let's do a quick before and after so far. 1, 2, perfect. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna leave that scar in there because I do like certain scars. There's just certain scars that are distracting. Okay, to remove this hair, we're gonna go to our details layer. Just make an adjustment. Perfect. Go to our blur layer. Make an adjustment there. Perfect. Go to our details layer again, and awesome. Let's grab that. Perfect. And we're going to wind up going to our layer 3 here, or our color in between those two variations, and just airbrushing this little area here out. Let's lower our opacity a bit to 18. Oops. We're in the wrong layer. We all make mistakes. It's okay. Perfect. Awesome. And next thing is this little area right up here. Okay. If you notice, I'm still leaving some of the blemishes in there to give the image a tiny bit more realism, because no one is perfect. We all know that. So there's enough blemishes in there to look realistic without it being distracting. It's my goal. Okay, let's go right up to the hair. And we're going to go ahead and go above all the layers we currently have in the frequency separation folder. Go to our clone stamp tool. We're going to change our clone stamp tool to 100% opacity. Change our blending mode to lighten. Take and sample hair from the right hand side and just kind of clone over. The trick there is switch your opacity to 100 so it looks realistic. You don't want to blur hair. If you don't have that, you will blur hair. I will sing. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, let's fix this little gap here. Perfect. So let's look at this before and after. So, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and merge these layers. And we're gonna go ahead and use the sharpen tool on a lower opacity. We're just gonna start sharpening out his eyes slightly. Okay, so we're here. So if you notice, I added some contrast in his eyes there. So it's like overall the image so far. Okay. Next thing we're going to want to doing is just adding some contouring to his chin to add a tiny bit of depth there, and darkening his shirt so we can start visually seeing his face. So we're going to get up to, we're going to go from the basic retouching section to defining and shaping. So let's go there. I'm going to go up to dodge and burn, go up to the burn part, make sure that the blending mode is set to luminosity so we're not manipulating saturation. We're only manipulating darks and lights in those areas. Okay, and go to our brush, switch it to white, start darkening these areas up. We'll switch to our high opacity just to work on his shirt. Perfect. And I tend to overdo things myself, so I will go to lower the opacity there. We're gonna go to dodge. Just lighten up his hair a bit in certain areas. Just like before and after, perfect. Go to dodge and burn again. Okay, we're gonna lower the opacity of that a tiny bit more, down to about 55%. Let's go to his eyes and lighten up his eyes a tad bit. Okay, so here's what I've done thus far. I haven't used the Liquify tool. Everything that I've used has been in retouching his skin and enhancing features. So what we've done is clean up his skin in the blemishes that he has. He has one last blemish right down here, which is probably going to be the biggest pain for most beginners, but I'll make it easier for you. Go to the frequency separation option, create a new layer, go to your clone stamp tool, switch it to lighten, go to opacity at 100. I'm going to go somewhere around that specific area and just drag right over. Perfect. And let's go to normal. I'm going to add a tiny hair in there just so it looks realistic. Perfect. It's like he never had a zit. Let's take before and after. 1, 2, perfect. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Perfect. So here's what we've done so far. We went through our global adjustments. We went through our basic skin retouching, define and shape. We enhanced eyes. We're going to go ahead and style hair. We're going to give him a tiny bit of length of hair. So we've kept the workflow that we've currently been utilizing. Let's merge these layers just for the purposes of demoing this specific piece. Go ahead and go to Liquify. I use the Liquify filter a lot to give some extra length to people's hair. Push that in, push that up. Awesome. Perfect. And just lower this shoulder down a tad bit. Awesome. Perfect. And I'm doing that to kind of give more relaxed shoulders and just some length of hair. So let's look back and forth. All the changes we've made in about 15 minutes. I'm happy with this image. So get in Control Save, go to Lightroom again, and I'm done. At this point, I can export and send it right off to my client, and I'm happy with it. And we did that all in 15 minutes. We combined the first 5 episodes of the Kiss photo series to make this image happen.
So we've covered a ton of information on retouching in the last 6 weeks. I've covered everything from frequency separation to the dodge and burn techniques to color grading to black and white conversions. A lot of you are emailing me about lighting and the business side of photography because that's what I said in the beginning I wanted to go ahead and cover. Those videos are coming out in the next couple weeks, so stay tuned for those. Now, if you do enjoy my videos, by all means, subscribe to this channel if you're on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, please share it with your friends. If you have any questions whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section below. Until next week, you have a great weekend.